My name is Blake Comfort, and I wanted to share my last 12 years of aviation, I'd say the history of my aviation experience, and also the planes that we've owned and operated, and the lessons and I'd say really great key takeaways from the realm of aircraft and aerospace and managing these pieces of equipment. So I started flying when I was 22, 23, which is 2012, 2013. I got my private pilot's license in 2013. And I started flying in Citabrias in like small two-place tailwheel. And really simple, really fun, the equivalent of flying a little Harley in the sky, a ton of fun to fly and operate. So I got my license, and we bought our first business traveling airplane was a Piper Saratoga II TC, 1998 model, if you're a plane nerd like me. And it was a great 6-seat, 4 in the back, club seating, 2 in the front. Has a little bit more width than a 36 Bonanza or some of the newer Bonanzas. It's the Piper kind of equivalent to a Bonanza. Anyways, I flew that for, gotta be, 5-6 years, and got my instrument rating in that plane. And I'd say one of my first lessons in these planes, business travel, we were flying. So it's a complex airplane. So you have propeller that changes its pitch, constant speed propeller is what that's called, and a retractable gear, which allows you to fly a little bit faster. And so you kind of learn that, and it's pretty quick. And once you start building time, it really becomes natural. Anyways, we were using the plane to chase mobile home park deals in Phoenix. So first couple trips in the plane, every piece of equipment I found has, unless it's brand new, has a shakedown where you pop up into little issues and little mechanical challenges. And so on one of our flights, we had a alternator that just wasn't mounted perfectly straight. And so we threw the alternator belt, and so it's the engine connecting to the alternator, and it broke the belt, and so we lost all of our electrical power. And it burned through the battery with the avionics. It had 2 Garmin GTN 750s, and so it burned through there was no backup battery on those, so it was just the normal starter battery. And it burned through it in 10 minutes. So we turned back around. We were coming from Phoenix back to San Diego, and we went back to Phoenix and had to do a whole dog and pony show luckily I had a handheld radio, so that was just a good thing. I had new batteries, so I was able to switch it out and make a call to the tower. I had the headset plug, but it taught me a lot on the initial piece of redundant systems. Like, it would have been better to have a completely separate alternator or like a reserve battery for the avionics, as well as just the plain battery. So you start to learn that you need these redundant systems to a degree that it's nowhere else. I've heard of it being really specifically important in scuba diving as well, but basically they're similar. Like in the air, you can't pull over. And so you have to have all these system integrations and redundancies. And so one of my big takeaways from owning Piper Saratoga was that it lacked some of the redundant systems like alternator and some of the batteries. Now the newer ones solve for that. They have avionics batteries. So anyways, there's a big issue later on, actually. Later on in my instrument rating process, I'm flying, and I had an old Autopilot that came with that plane. And that was the original equipment, and then we had some of the newer Garmin navigational equipment. So the Garmin didn't talk to the Autopilot really well. You had to use both of them separately and make sure that they were both working. So they're fighting each other. And as long as you operated the Autopilot on heading mode and very specific, not using it on the navigation piece to tie it together and basically have that purely automated functions, it worked. But anyways, I'm learning to do my instrument rating, and the autopilot literally just puffed smoke out into the airplane. And luckily it was decent weather and we weren't dependent on it at that moment. So it was not a safety issue at that point. Motor, plane, everything was running fine. So we land and I end up having to put the plane down and do some work to that one. And we got a new Garmin Autopilot that does 100% connect with the Garmin radios and navigation equipment. It's called a Navcom. So I integrated with the GTN 750 to the Autopilot, and it was a completely different airplane. So I bring this up because there's a recent crash at Montgomery. Going into Montgomery Field, there was a Citation II from 1985 that went down like a week ago. And I have since, the Saratoga owned another plane called a Citation V. So it'd be the next era of the Citation II. In the 90s, there was a Citation V, which was just a little bit bigger engines. And it had the same issue that 1985 Citation II would have had. The systems did not integrate, and there was no retrofit. So it's being worked on, and that's not Garmin's fault. It's a challenge to do and get it approved by the FAA. It's just it's a long process. But I do think that was a significant contributing factor. So this lesson is called systems integration, and it's a key component. So when you build a business, when you're operating airplanes, when you're doing anything, systems need to integrate, or you have to find methods to basically bypass that integration. When you do that, you lose the efficiency of the system. So with these older Citations running around and they're single pilot capable.
All right, if you're enjoying this content, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, and check out the description below for our websites listed. Thanks a lot for joining.